Stocks are set for a big move, and there's four key charts we're going to watch to be ready for weekly and monthly candle closes. And Jerome Powell speaks on Wednesday, which means he's going to be closing out the month of July. What is he going to have to say? It's been an interesting last couple of weeks, and the big move already started. Lots of pockets of deep red in the last week and lots of pockets of green. But is the market going to fall back into fear? Only one or two more points, and we're going to be right there. So stay tuned, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about this weekend. Important to note that there is some data this week. Tuesday and Wednesday will be the last calendar days of the month, with Jerome rounding out the month of July with a rate decision, an FOMC conference, and all that good stuff. What's interesting is that the Bank of Canada cut for a second time last week. The Bank of England set for a second cut this week. So Jerome Powell is going to have to start talking about cuts. This meeting, next meeting, he's going to get the question, and he will have to answer it as best he can. He's been doing a good job at avoiding it, but at a certain point, he's going to have to do that. And then as we round out the week, we have average hourly earnings, non-farm payroll, and the unemployment rate. We also have big tech earnings. This is the thick of earnings week. So on Tuesday, we have AMD and Microsoft. On Wednesday, we got Meta. And then on Thursday, we got Amazon and Apple. Arguably, I would say that every day is important, but because Wednesday will be the last day of the month, and July is going to be the first new day of the month, it's going to be important for us to watch not only weekly candle closes for the S&P and for the, let's have a look here really fast. So bouncing off our weekly uptrend for the S&P. On the NASDAQ, yeah, we lost it. It's been a pretty big sell-off. If we look here to monthly candles for the S&P, we're nearly back to flat. We're up by 22 cents. Is it going to hold? Are we going to be green? Are we going to be red? And that pink line we just saw on QQQ for the weekly chart, this pink one right here at 460.58, that corresponds with a 460 pivot on the monthly chart, which is the May high. If we close above or below that, it's very important. And then notably, are we going to get a lower low or a higher high into next month? This will be particularly important because we know that by closing at or near the low of a candle, the odds or the probability are that we do get follow through. It doesn't happen every time, but unless we're able to suck this candle back up, meaning the NASDAQ, notably with big tech earnings, to make the candle look more like the S&P, which is more like a doji. And this gives us a bit more of a cushion to maintain that higher monthly low into the next month, into the next month, into the next month. So if big tech does not deliver, we're going to find out into the close of the month and the open of the month for QQQ. Very important. Now I want to play a short clip because I am starting to get fairly impressed with new applications for AI. So this is a Sony new microsurgery robot stitching a corn kernel. So what they're doing here is, this is from LinkedIn. The person talks about how it's not meant to replace humans. It's meant to actually enhance. So this way it can be very precise. The human is operating the robot to enhance it. This is a kernel of corn, very small. And it's putting multiple stitches in here. It's doing a nice job, doing nice little bows at the end. I have some stitches in my head right now. I can appreciate that something like this might be very well suited. So what this really means is that I think a lot of people don't really think about AI in terms of how it can actually enhance people's jobs, right? Called productivity or productivity gains. They think it's just like what Metaverse tried to create here. Nothing. So what'll be very important is to see whether or not by the end of the week we fall back into fear, and people put even more money into money market funds. They've now risen to a record 6.15 trillion. So are people going to raise more money? Are they going to get scared? Or does the hype regarding AI continue? I think these companies will have to deliver. Tesla and Google did not really do that great of a job. But what I did hear is that they're going to keep spending lots and lots of money, notably from Google. So likely going to hear the same from these other big companies. But what are they expecting to get in return for what they're doing? Otherwise, people are likely going to raise more money. All right, I'm going to ask you for a huge favor. If you could please consider smashing that thumbs up or subscribing to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Please also remember that as we closed out the beginning of the year or the first half, after we have more than 10% at the middle point of the year, the odds are that we have an 82.6% chance of going higher by the end of the year. What does that mean? We're going to be either 8 or 10% higher. Do not miss out on these gains. So what that means from this graph is confirmed with the second graph here. If we have more than 20 records at the midpoint of the year or the end of June, what's the odds? It's 80% for either a 6 or 10% move. So what I'm really trying to tell you is that if we now actually had roughly a dip on the S&P, why? Well, because we're down by roughly 5%. It's about 4.5. We didn't even fill the first hole though. So will this chart turn out to be NVIDIA, where we get close to filling the first gap, we go higher and we fade? Or is it going to be that we actually keep going lower, right? We don't reclaim the 50 DMA. I think we need at least 2 candle closes to reconfirm a trend change. Or do we just go straight back up? I'm not sure, but we've had roughly a dip so far, and lots of charts have had a lot of damage. On the NASDAQ so far from all-time high to low, we're down by about 5% as well. Sorry, that's the S&P. Let's look at the NASDAQ here. Yeah, this one's more deep, right? There you go. There's a correction, nearly 10% there, 9.5, 10%. Yeah, there's a correction. So technically, that's a correction. S&P dipped, the NASDAQ corrected. And as we're set to close out these candles, I think it's going to be very important because, like I said, if this AI thing is going to continue to be real and we think that there's an 80% chance or 82% chance, I don't want to bet against this. So what that means for me is very simple. If you can watch for the next roughly 2-3 minutes, I will make this very easy for you to follow along. All right, let's go. So every single month, let me actually go here and see if I actually have this note here. So going to the month, every single time we open up a new month, I give these numbers, which are basically us thinking about whether we're driving. If you're not sure what driving is, again, green is good, yellow's cautious, red is bad. So on an annual chart, which is this one right here, 12-month chart, we're in higher highs over those candle highs. What does that mean? We're on the highway in cruise control going 60 miles an hour, right? Let's go. So on an annual perspective for both the S&P and the NASDAQ, green lights. But if we look to where we are right now, as we're set to close out the month of July, where are we? Well, the S&P is at 544 and the NASDAQ's at 462. So we fall inside of the yellow light for the S&P and the yellow light for the for QQQ. What does that mean? We're still on the highway, but we're not in cruise control anymore. And we're approaching a town, which means we're cautious. Why? We have an inside bar. Okay, I don't know what an inside bar is. It means we're inside the range of the previous candle. We do have a technical fail breakout or a higher high. But if we go to a line chart, it just looks like we're consolidating. Yes, that's all we're doing. We're flagging. Pop, flag, pop, flag. So if next month we do not manage to maintain the higher low, which means that if in the month of August we go below 455 on the NASDAQ here and we go below the current monthly low of 537 into the month of August, we're going to get a red light. What does a red light mean? It's pretty simple. We stop. We stop being bullish and we wait for more data, notably the close of August. Why? Well, if you look to see what happened last time, anytime we form a major correction, unless we're able to form higher highs and higher lows, what happens? We go down. Simple, easy, right? Not very complicated. Same thing here. There's your correction. Same thing here. We form one lower low, close below the low, but the next month we're right back over. We do not form a trend change without at least 2 lower highs and lower lows, or 2 higher highs and higher lows. What does that mean? We typically need 3 candles, which means 3 months of data. We're not going to get 3 months of data by the end of this week. We might get evidence that into August, the rate of ascent is declining, where now we're peaking and we're going to go down. Again, was it a dip? Was the dip enough? Was the correction on the NASDAQ enough, that 10%? Or is there more? That's what it's really all about. Are companies going to be able to hype us up on the future of AI and other applications and all the billions of dollars they're going to spend? Or are people going to be scared and run back to money markets? Hey, we're going to have to find out. So what I'm basically telling you is that starting on Wednesday, when we, is it Wednesday? Let me just double check. Starting on Thursday, when we open up the month of August, I'm going to have new numbers, which means I'm assuming we're going to be in a green light for the annual and a yellow light for the month of August. But because we're close to support, like I just mentioned at the beginning of the video, if we're close to support and we crack it, that's not optimal. We're at least going to be going into a bit of a dip, which means we need to reset the chart. So the bulls really want to maintain that higher low. And with that said, thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to hang out with me tomorrow at 9:15, subscribe on the left. If not, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next video.